What's going on, everybody? I already filmed a video kind of for what this video is going to be about, but then I didn't like it, so I'm doing it again. And before we get started, if you have already bought a Carlos or an LS Quan sticker, shout out to you. If you haven't, make sure to hit the link in the description and pick one up. It'd be helping me out and I'd really appreciate it, and you'll also get a cool ass sticker. Now, I have an extremely bad headache today, so I don't really want to talk a shit ton. I honestly don't even really want to make a video, but I should, because a lot has happened since the last one. And the last one, I guess, was Pat's Q&A. I hope you guys like that, and I'm going to be trying to do more of those, you know, from here on out with more drivers. So if you've got a suggestion of a driver you'd like me to do a Q&A with, leave it in the comments below. That would be sick. I wish I was at Grid Life with all the homies right now. Everybody keeps calling me and asking me if I'm going, and I'm not. Sucks, but hopefully everybody's out there killing it and having a great time. You may have seen on my Instagram that we have started with the engine. I have a few clips of some measuring that went down on the block that I'm going to add in here, hopefully. But overall, Tom's already explained this in another video, and now I'm doing it again. So it is what it is. But he measured bearing clearance, he measured the crank. The last thing to do is measure the bore and file the rings. And then we can start assembling the short block. So here it is right here. I'll take this off so you guys can see. Dun dun dun. Here's the block. If you guys didn't know, it is an LS2 aluminum block. 6 liter. And it's got a 4-inch crank. And it's going to be 11:7:1 compression. So it should make, we're thinking right around mid-5s NA. So we got Y-scope pistons, Harbortown rods, and this big 4-inch crank. It's gonna be sick. Next thing I did, why didn't I say this earlier? You guys ready for this? Dun dun dun. Don't mind this overspray right here, because that's all gonna be gone. But just pay attention to the cage. It might look a little streaky right now because I need to hit it with some more clear, but it's gray. And I had to use spray paint because I'm poor and we don't have a lot of time. So I'm gonna hit that with some more clear tonight. What are you doing? Is that your baby? Is that your baby? Carlos has had this toy for a very long time, and he destroys every toy, but this one he just kept, and he loves it. The other thing that's been completed is this rear firewall shelf, and it's been plated, welded. There's some seam sealer underneath there. You can't really see it now because it's been painted, but should keep me safe. Hopefully you can hear me over this fan. It's going to be like a wind tunnel. Ah, better.
He left you alone with me. Alright, so welcome to my show. He said to talk to you guys, so talk as I stand here and do this, so I'll try to. Basically the last things we gotta do real quick. I've already checked the clearance on the rod bearings with the crank and everything, so we're just going to take the final 4 rods back apart, clean the bearings one last time, and set them up kind of like how all these are up here. Bearings are installed back on the rods, everything is bone dry and cleaned, bolts are already lubed up with ARP Ultra Torque, and they're ready to be put into the motor. So once I take these apart, clean it off, these are going to lay down here just like that, and then I'm going to start measuring the pistons and checking it with the corresponding bore to make sure piston wall clearance is what we want it to be. And once we, God, I suck at this. No. Yes. Okay. You guys all right? Okay. All right, so once we do that, then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna follow the rings, and then we'll be putting everything together and putting the crank in the block, and then putting the rotating assembly onto the crank. I guess I'll tell you guys a little bit about some of the stuff that we're using for this build. We're using our Harbortown rods. They're H-beam rod, and we use, depending on the application, we use either ARP 2000 7/16 rod bolts or ARP standard, which is the 8740. 8740 rod bolts will handle pretty much whatever you can throw at them, but you know, some people want the extra security and just the knowing that they can push their motor, you know, farther if they wanted to. So the ARP 2000s have a much higher tensile strength, and typically we'll do that on like our turbo motors or anything that's going to be above, I'd say, like 700 horsepower. So the bearing we're using, so Harbortown rods, the bearings we're using are ACL race bearings. They're a tri-metal design. A lot of OEM companies have switched over to a tri-metal bearing too. The neat thing about the race bearings is they're going to be narrower. You can see they are actually thinner than the standard. I don't know how to get this thing to focus. Well, they're actually narrower than the standard bearing, and then a standard bearing like the Clevites that they would use from the factory, it's actually, you know, a half shell. It follows the contour of the crank. But the race bearings are actually, they're egg shaped, and you'll notice that it actually only rides on the top and bottom, and when you pull measurements of top and bottom, this is your clearance, you know, with the crankshaft, and when you pull from the sides or right above the actual crease or the break in the rod, you're going to see it's going to be larger, and that's just because the way the bearings are formed. They're a race bearing, you know, you don't want all that drag of riding completely on the entire bearing, so you only want it to be where it needs to be, and then the less surface mass that it's traveling on, the less friction, so that's why it's a narrower bearing. So yeah, same thing with the bearing. One neat thing about the tri-metal bearings, if you look at them, the finish, when you actually get them bone dry, they get all multicolored. And the scratches you see right here are not scratches. I know probably some of you are like, what the fuck? That's actually just from measuring the bearing, because the actual bore gauge has the middle portion for measuring, and then it has two wheels, you know, that help it glide along the surface. So that's the imprint that it leaves. Here's what the ACLs look like when they're dirty. You know, they don't have that multicolor to it. It's more of a dull, you can kind of see it on the back, but see if it's get the focus. I don't know. So, and then clean this off. And I'll show you the difference. This one really didn't brighten up too much, but you can see the coatings. Focus. There we go. You can kind of see it's almost like, it reminds me of titanium, you know, with the shielding gas and everything.
Alright, so Thomas successfully measured everything and has a couple more rings to gap, and then he's going to assemble the rod to the piston and put the rings on the pistons.
We'll put the crank in first.
We'll put the crank in first. So the goal by the end of tonight is to have the short block assembled. Tom's tired, so thank you for staying up. And yeah, we're going to do that, and then I still have to clear the cage one more time, but I have a headache and it's just gonna make it worse. I painted my seat rails, all painted, so after I clear it, the seat can go in. I can wire the chassis. This still has to get painted, obviously, but there's still a few tabs to be made. So once those tabs are made, then I'll paint the rear, but I'm not too concerned about it. The main concern was getting this all painted in here. That way I could start throwing everything together and wire, make the chassis harness, put the seat in, put the handbrake in, which I don't have a handbrake, but put the handbrake in, and finish sealing that rear firewall. It still needs a little bit more silicone on it. Or actually, when I'm using silicone, we're using seam sealer. And then the other thing I might do, I might not do it tonight, but soon, is pull this Wisefab control arm off and bend it. So what you do is you heat it up and you bend it. You can kind of see where my dust finger trail is right there. That'll be bent up 15 degrees. The problem is that Wisefab drops your cars so low. No one would think that, you know, all these Wisefab FD cars and shit, they're all tall and high. But it actually drops your car like 2.5 inches. And with a doof kit, which a doof kit also brings your car down like 2.5 inches, the front end is on the ground. And if you don't bend this and you raise the car, the control arm then hits the knuckle. You can see how close it is right there, and at full walk it's even worse. And a lot of guys have had problems with that, so what they do is they just bend the control arm 15 degrees. So if you plan on getting Wisefab, there's a little tip for you. So Chelsea, Chelsea Denofa, has said that he would like to be my spotter, but I have to fly him out here, and obviously I can't afford that because I can barely afford to get the car together. So I want you guys to go over to Chelsea's YouTube channel. I'll link it in the description below, and tell him that you guys all want him to fly out to South Carolina for the Myrtle Beach STU round and spot for me and be in the video and do cool shit. So go tell him, please, right now. Like, you can stop watching this video, go to Chelsea's channel, tell him to come out and hang out with me and spot for me, and then come back and finish the video. It's about to go down. What are you listening to right now?
The knife.
Oh my god, don't fuck around. Do you want some help with that? Feels good. Feels good.
So tight.
Oh, so tight. Can we put the studs in first?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna help Tom with something real fast. Check back in a second. Alright, so the caps are going on. Gonna hold this crank in place, and then he's gonna flip it over. Well, before he flips it over, probably just put the pistons and the rods together and the rings on, right?
Yeah, we can flip it over once the caps are in there. Well, and the caps are tight.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the tightest caps around. Tightest spec caps ever. That's hot. Ew. Make your tongue all itchy.
So basically all we're doing is we're just arranging the pistons and the rods together with the wrist pin and just making sure everything's pointing in the right direction so we don't have any issues. And then putting the rings on them and getting ready to drop them in.
Alright, the pistons are assembled. Tom's lubing them up with his Astroglide that he puts in this fancy little squirt bottle. Yeah, if you guys didn't know, you can use Astroglide to assemble engines.
It makes them run real smooth.
Yeah, real smooth like. Yeah. So yeah, they're going in. Alright, well, it's now what, 4:30 in the morning or something, and we've got 3 of the pistons in, and don't mind all of that oil, but yeah, so the other 5 need to go in still, and we're gonna finish that up tomorrow. It's just late, and you definitely don't want to be doing something like this when you're tired, because there's so much precision involved. These beautiful, beautiful Wiseco pistons in there. So we're gonna finish this up tomorrow then. Short block assembly.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll finish that up tomorrow. I'm gonna spray that clear tomorrow when I don't have a headache. My headache's actually gone now, but it's 4 in the morning, so fuck that. And then I'm also going to try and run some wire tomorrow to start prepping for the chassis harness, which will only be like 6 wires. Not very much.
Right.
And then thanks to Radium for making such a ballin' ass fuel cell, I just have to tie into their harness that comes with the pumps, or with the cell that goes to the pumps. So it should be real fucking easy. And yeah, we got about 3 weeks, and we're only missing a couple little things. So once those get here, once we can order them, yeah, we'll be ready to rock and roll. I cannot wait to hear this thing start and move around on its own power, and not the power of myself and a couple other people pushing it all the time. It's gonna be sick. Gonna take it up to Injuku to get aligned. It's gonna be fucking sick. But anyways, thanks for watching today's video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, turn the notification button on. If you have not picked up a Carlos or an LS Quan sticker, do so please. The link is below.